Our final panelist is Candace Newton. Ms. Newton is a television producer, entrepreneur, woman's advocate, and educator. She founded a new style of radio on C-Fun that showcases stories that bring positive change to women's lives. Her company, she uses this company to facilitate that work, and it's called Unlocking Secrets for Women. Her many volunteer commitments include advisory committee of the Women's Leadership Circle at the Vancouver Board of Trade, and a board member at large at a major cancer research foundation. So we have a very esteemed panel this evening. And because we have a limited time period and we want to get to audience questions, I'm going to ask the panelists the same question each to give their answer, and then we'll go directly to you to ask them some questions. So we haven't decided who's going to go first, which is always interesting.
You should let the man go first. They don't get much chance these days.
So the question is basically, what surprised you about this documentary?
So not very much surprised me. In other words, I think I was probably familiar with most of what it said. And actually, I think unlike you, I probably do think it reflects reality fairly well. I suppose, though, the one thing that always surprised me, not about the documentary, but about some of the substance, was that part of the issue is how we choose to behave. In this particular case, how women, especially young women, choose to behave. There was a very telling quote that was about that press secretary where the person leaving the job said to her, "You're a lot better at this than you think you are." And so I think when we get to the discussion about what does this mean for people when they go into careers, whether it's business or anywhere else, a key question is, how do you actually deal with this? If you know that people look at young women differently than they look at other people, and it's true that they do. Some of that's good and some of that's bad. How do you deal with that? So maybe not surprise, but something to think about.
So when you were I'm taking moderator prerogative again. So when you were CEO and president of BC Hydro, how did you deal with it? Did you see it evident in that culture there, and how did you?
Well, sure. Traditional male culture. So when I joined the company, if you looked at the top 100 people in the company in terms of position, 10 of them were women, which was kind of normal for the industry. 6 years later, 42 of them were women, which is completely not normal for the industry. And so, and that was not just in kind of marketing or HR, nothing wrong with that, but in operational roles as well. So in other words, we tried to make a significant difference across the company so that everybody in the company could see women and men working together and in leadership roles.
Great. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Candace.
I don't know if this is a surprise or not, but I do understand Darlene's perspective. From my perspective, I always think it's really amazing when women take the very tools that were used to be destructive and use the exact same tools to turn around and impact very forcefully. And it is true. Television is sensationalized. I mean, that's really what it's all about, and what Darlene is saying is correct. But I love the fact that women empowered themselves enough to use that same vehicle to turn around and say, fight fire with fire. And it is impacting, and the intention is to create change. And I mean, I think we're intelligent enough to know that we can discern between what is fantasy and what isn't, and what may be extreme. But the point is it is getting the message across to create change. This very presence of all of us here is doing that. And so for me, I think that's it's surprising in the sense that it just shows when women have the courage to pull themselves together, and because that's really all that's happening here is courage. That's really what this is. When they do it, and they do it well like that, it's impacting, and that's exactly the change we're looking for. So I like that. That's my surprise, if you want to call it that.
May I add one additional surprise?
Of course.
I love hearing other people's points of view, and it reminds me of other things I wish I could remember to say. On this viewing, this is my 4th viewing of this film, and the very disappointing surprise that comes for me at the end of this film is the senator who has the framed quote about, in order to be as good as a man, you have to be considered twice as good, blah, blah, blah. Luckily, this is not difficult. I hate that quote. I think it is so derogatory towards men. I think it does nothing to further anybody anywhere. And I found that, you know, at that point they'd taken me to, yes, you know, we can change this and we can do these positive things, and then boom, there's a stereotypical thing. I was so disappointed by that, and that was a surprise.
Thank you.
My passion is to see gender blindness in the same way my mother taught me to be colorblind, that we're gender blind, and just ask ourselves to be the best human beings we can be.